right, let me get settled here. Okay, we're good to go now. Goodness gracious. I throw the glasses in there too. All right, so welcome to Joyful Gathering. As I said before, we are so pleased that you're all here with us because we need to be together in community. And however we do it, there's no such thing as impossible. So we know that means I am possible. So each one here is possible to be here. And each one in Facebook land and YouTube world, you're all with us also. So we're going to begin our talk today. In our action-oriented culture, we can often move into doing before we anchor ourselves in source and in the divine wisdom that's within us. The freedom, the love, the joy, the peace, the abundance of that source that lives within us. We sometimes become, a lot of times, so outward focused that we forget to turn inward and then upward, always upward. Charles Fillmore, in his book, Talks on Truth, wrote this: "The image and likeness of our spiritual body is as thoroughly defined in us as is the tree in the acorn. Does the acorn consult anything outside of itself as to how it should bring forth the tree? Certainly not. It simply rests in spirit and unfolds from moment to moment as moved by the impulse within. There is a divine intelligence within all life, all life. And so we are going to do some careful training on the idea of going in and up to the source of our being, to listen to that inner voice of truth before moving out into action. Today and next Sunday, we dig into this theme of aligning with the divine. Sometimes we forget that, and this is really, really an important thing to remember, that there is something within us that is beyond human, way beyond human. This creative energy, this force of good. This aligning with the divine will cause an inner movement to support the outward expression of God's wisdom and freedom, love, joy, peace, abundance in our lives. So the talk this week and next week, the talks are really about the 7 ups. And it's not a soda, no, but it's the spiritual ups, and there's 7 of them. So we have 7 up. Today we're going to explore look up, lift up, lighten up, and very briefly, make it up. And next week we'll continue with that make it up, part 2, and kick it up, give it up, and start it up. So we're going to go into 3.5 of those 7 ups today. The first is the idea of looking up to the divine source of all that is, was, and ever will be. Now I want to be really clear about something, because I really know there is no looking up. There's no looking to the sides or outside. Because the divine is in all places, and energy is everywhere, the divine ultimate energy. But we use it symbolically, like I automatically, when I'm in gratitude, I always say, thank you, God, and I just look up. You know, so it's a symbolic looking up. It's powerful, and it's a beautiful source that unfolds in each and every one of our lives, all of the time when we are conscious. Holmes wrote this in Science of Mind: "One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority. Knowing this is in your thought, work on perfect peace and calm." And that's an extremely, extremely powerful statement. Just think about it for a moment. Just you, all by your little old self, when you consciously look up, another way of saying align with the divine, you constitute a complete majority. You and the divine, that's all we need to make any incisive, clear decisions. A conscious decision. Instead of just making decisions, consciously, we make them too, but it's so much better, especially for the what seems like the larger things in life, to really contemplate it a little deeper and make a conscious decision, including the divine intelligence within you. And this is also a powerful statement from the sacred texts of the Sikh religion. Should anyone be a victim of great anxiety, his body racked with maladies, beset with problems of home and family, with pleasure and pain alternating, wandering in four directions without peace or rest, should he then contemplate the Supreme Being, peaceful shall his mind and body become. In these uncertain times, because actually all the times are uncertain, we just don't know that. We think we know, but this is in our face uncertain times. Are we including our greatest gift? Are we connecting with that divine indwelling spiritual power within us when we make all of our decisions? Jesus told us that we must become as children to enter the kingdom of heaven, meaning we must have the innocence and purity of thought in order to achieve peace and joy and etc. And here's an example of that. A Sunday school teacher asked her group of children if anyone could quote the entire 23rd Psalm. A little 4.5-year-old girl was among those who raised their hands. A bit skeptical, the teacher asked if she could really quote the entire 23rd Psalm. The little girl came to the front of the room, faced the class, made her cute little curtsy, and said, "The Lord is my shepherd. That's all I want." And she bowed again, went and sat down. That may be the greatest interpretation of the 23rd Psalm I've ever heard. That's all I want. That's all we all should truly want, is that connection with that divine. When we don't know the answers, when we're faced with situations that come into our face and we just don't know how to fix it. I'll get into that later. There is a power that we must turn it over to if we want the best outcome and dwell in that place. The second of our 7-ups is lift up. Now you may wonder how that's different from look up, lift up. Well, it is. Look up is to consciously and specifically turn to recognize that source of our being. Lift up means to lift up your vibration. So are you in alignment with source energy? This is how we really know. I want to get into this a little bit. This is in the book, Ask and It Is Given by Jerry and Esther Hicks, and I've taught many classes by Esther Hicks and the late Jerry Hicks. And this one you might be familiar with. It is about the emotional guidance system. And I used to hand out all the papers, but I didn't print them up today. But I will. But this is about aligning perfectly with the work of, well, their work aligns perfectly with the work of David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, a great book. They suggest that our emotions are indicators of our vibrational frequency. And our vibrational frequency is an indicator of our degree of alignment with source energy. How connected are we? And we know this. Try to imagine this. This is how I see my alignment. Within us all, we say this every week, at every class, within us all is this source of divinity. It is our eternal self. It is who we truly are. And then we have this human experience. And in this human experience, when things don't feel good, it's because they are in contrast with our own divinity. And when something's in contrast, you're going to feel it. But when you're in complete alignment, you feel the peace. You feel the abundance, the love, the joy. And that's when you're in alignment with your own divinity. That's my take on it. So Hicks put our emotions on a continuum, just as Hawkins did. From lowest, most out of alignment, to the highest, most in alignment. The most out of alignment set of emotions are those of fear, depression, despair. And then you move up the scale to anger, discouragement, blame. And then you move up to disappointment, frustration, and pessimism. And then you move to boredom, contentment, and hopefulness. This is when hopefulness is a great place to be at, a great place. And then you move up to optimism, enthusiasm, happiness, and ultimately to passion, joy, appreciation, empowerment, and love. Of course, love being the highest. As I said, these align beautifully with David Hawkins' vibrational scale, which goes from shame and guilt at the very bottom to peace, joy, and enlightenment at the top. The idea behind Lift Up is to first pay attention to where you currently are. Only you can do that. Only you can go within, with any decision you're faced with life in general. And how do you feel? What emotion? Where would you put that on the scale? Let's say you get hit by some distressing news, and you immediately want to run out and fix it. That's the first thing that most of us think of. And what if first you went within and checked where you are emotionally? And if you aren't in the vibration of optimism, enthusiasm, eagerness, and all the other higher vibration, then you choose to lift up a notch. Just lifting up a notch. Even going to anger is lifting up a notch before taking action. And in that elevating or lifting up, you create a vibration more aligned with the source of all good, and the outcome will be much different. For an example, last night I got a very disturbing phone call from a family member, and his son has once again started using heroin. And so what can be so enthusiastic and joyful about that? As a mother, I can't fix any of that, but it finally dawned on me. I can listen, I can offer a little bit, not advice, but just to engage him. He was very distraught. And finally, I thought, I got to turn this over to God, because I, of myself, could do nothing. This is the kinds of situations. So it's not up here being all airy-fairy about joy and enthusiasm, because this is a choice we make, no matter what. And maybe not joyful there, but I can certainly go to hopeful. I don't have to be in the despair. He was in the despair. I can hold that for him and turn to prayer. Ultimately, that's what I did, because I don't have an answer to that. The idea behind Lift Up is to first pay attention to where you currently are. And in elevating or lifting up, you create a vibration more aligned with the source of all good, and the outcome will be much, much more different. And how do we lift up our emotions? By the thoughts we choose to think. We may choose to think a different thought. We may not be able to jump directly, most of the time we can't, from fear and depression and despair to thoughts of passion and joy. I mean, usually that doesn't follow. But like I said before, we can move up. We can move up the scales. We can go to hope. We can go to the next one. And then at any moment, by the thoughts that we think we can, moving on to the next one, lighten up, which pretty much does mean what it sounds. In most situations in life, we really need to lighten up a little. I think we take so many things so seriously that really don't need to be as serious as we make it. Some things do, but other things don't. So lighten up. Henry Ward Beecher once said, "A person without a sense of humor is like a wagon without springs, jolted by every pebble on the road." We can make a choice for how light we're going to take the moment. We don't have to wait for humor or for the lightness or the joy to come to us. We can create it. We can create it. Just know how powerful we are. We can create our lives. We do create them anyway. Meister Eckhart said, "Joy is the infallible sign of the presence of God. The unmistakable evidence of God's presence is joy." That's what I was in before, and I didn't realize that we were 7 minutes over, because I was in the joy of talking with all my buddies. So, but we do have to operate on this human realm, so had to get back to business here. The inevitable evidence of God's presence is joy, which means it's a joy that isn't dependent on or contained in the experiences of our lives. We don't have to give all of our power to every single thing that comes along. Choose wisely, and then always bring your divine into that decision. So as we go through this experience we call life, there are wonderful opportunities to make life a little lighter. And that doesn't mean that things are not important. It just means that whatever we're going through, whatever, and some of us are going through some heavy challenges right now. In a group of this size, you're always going to have a few, if not many, people going through challenges. These are opportunities. And some of us are going through some really big ones. Whatever we are going through, we can hold it lightly, because there is plenty of hope available, regardless of what we're going through, because there's plenty of God. When there's plenty of God available, there's plenty of hope. So let's just hold that hope. No matter what it is we're going through, let's hold the hope that this too not only shall pass, but shall be better. There is a divine solution in every challenge we come across. And then we have make it up. We're going to do half of that today, which means we get to give our life meaning. We get to say what is, what something means. We can even rewrite our story if we want. And I'm sure many of you have heard of the prosperity teacher Edwin Gaines, incredible woman. Well, she tells a story of her friend who put MSU after her name on a business card. Edwin was very impressed by this string of letters. but then admitted to her friend that she didn't know what SMU stood for. So she asked her friend, and her friend's reply was, make stuff up. Make stuff up. We will discuss more of that idea next week. We make stuff up anyway, don't we? We make stuff up. Here's the situation, fact, and we got like a million different theories about that one fact. And yours is gonna be different from mine. We're all gonna have an opinion on it. So make up the good stuff that serves you. So before moving into the world, into action, I'm gonna go over them. Look up to God, the source of all good. Lift up our vibration by choosing thoughts that will take us even just one rung up that ladder, that vibrational ladder, so that we may be in alignment with Source. Lighten up, realizing that we can hold things lightly and we can find joy, because God is in everything, infinite possibilities. And then make it up. We get to decide. We get to decide. I mean, I do think about it, all the time. Our move that we've been praying for 9 years, in God's time. In God's time, which might not be, and it certainly is not my time, because my time would have been a long time ago. But in God's time, the perfect unfoldment begins. And that is exactly what is taking place, easily and effortlessly, to do these outdoor services. I just get these downloads, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna see if the board will agree with that one. So, yeah, they did, but we did postpone it several months. We kept postponing it, and then it felt like, you know what? God bless Reverend Brenda. You know what? we just got to do this. We just got to do this, and I'm so glad we did. This is our 4th or 5th one. Yeah, and I'm so glad that we did. It's so important for me, I don't know about you, to be in community. Yeah. It's so important. That's why we're doing our picnic, because we are in community. Yeah, we're not crazy. We have masks on. You should take a picture of this. We have masks on, and you know, we're sanitizing, I hope, and and we're just enjoying each other's company. We don't have to be on top of each other. We are in our energy field here. So this week, let's remember and keep it simple by truly believing that God is our only source of all good, our true source of all good. Then lift up our vibrations high by choosing a better feeling thought. Don't take everything so seriously. We can lighten up and feel some joy. And finally, make up a good story, because we make up most of the stories anyway, so why not make up a happy story? And in making up that happy story, I come to an end here. I think that you all get that, but next week we'll do the second part, because it's going to be nice weather that day too. So we'll do the second part of our 7 Up series. So God bless you all. Thank you.